That's a nice photo op. Who's got a camera? I know a lot of you from the Republican Party, right, Mike? It's great. Thank you for coming. We just planned this like Tuesday, Wednesday. My name is Phil Sevilla. I am one of your co-hosts along with George Rodriguez, our steering committee, George Rodriguez, Don Krebs, and Darlene Jimenez, wherever she is.
Thanks for doing it.
So why are we here? Why are we doing this? Well, first of all, as you know from the news, it's like a constant drone that the Trump administration can't do anything, right, to solve the crisis on the border, right? Well, we know better, don't we?
Yes.
All right, and there is a national protest rally. Washington is the head of the snake, and they're having a big rally at 10. And then they also organize other cities like San Antonio to have their protest rallies. One is going to be going on here at 10 o'clock over at the main plaza. So we thought, okay, they have their protest, we will have our rally, right? Okay, so we have excellent speakers here today. I'd like to, any ministers in the house? Okay, why don't we say a short prayer? Dear God, our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Reclaim this land, O Lord, for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your Spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders and our nation's people. Open their minds to the great worth of human life and the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking your and doing your divine will. We ask this in our Lord's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I'm Phil Sevilla. I wear multiple hats. I'm president of a nonprofit political action committee, Texas Leadership Institute. I am also a member of the Republican Party of Bexar County Executive Committee as a precinct chair, and also the editor of the Alamo Torch. If you haven't gotten on the Alamo Torch, we have a sign-up sheet. Please sign up. We're going to do a big article on the border, several articles actually, with Ken's over here, Kenrick Ward. There he is, okay. Kenrick Ward is an investigative reporter who's a specialist in border issues. So you'll be hearing a lot about him. We have 5 or 6 speakers here today. George Rodriguez, we've got Weston Martinez, we have Dr. Alma Arredondo, we have Chris Fales, and who did I forget? Colonel Casillas. I'd like to do a preface real quick for you. This issue is real, very real for me, and very personal. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put together this rally. 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine from my church called me and said, we're starting a prayer chain. We'd like friends and family to pray for this young man who's gone missing. That was 2 weeks ago. A few days later, his charred, scorched body was found in an apartment here in San Antonio. His name is Jared Nathaniel Vargas. Did you read the news about him? And when I talked to my friend a few days after his body was found, I didn't read the news, and he told me what happened to him. That he was an undocumented alien. He had been stopped before for drunken driving. He was never processed through ICE. They let him go several times. He murdered this young man. This young man just starting his life. I went to his funeral service yesterday. It was full. His high school friends, college friends, his family, all grieving because here's a man in the springtime of his life, just starting his life. His life snuffed out. He didn't know this perpetrator, the murderer, very long. They were co-workers at a restaurant. And apparently, Jared had some supervisory responsibilities. And this fellow, Esquivel Garcia, was fired. So we're thinking it has something to do with that, but the police is very tight-lipped, and they've told the family, don't go out of the press, you know, just keep it under wraps. And we were asking ourselves, why shouldn't the family be allowed to grieve and to let people know what happened to their son? Now, when you think about the indictment against Police Chief McManus, you know about that, right? That he's violating state law on sanctuary city ban. He wouldn't want this news out, right?
Right.
And here's another murderer, undocumented alien, who's murdered a citizen of San Antonio. So there's a lot going on here, and we're going to write about it. So get on the torch. The alternative media is not going to hide this. We need to expose it. Before I turn this over to excellent speakers that we have, I want to bring up a few things, if you don't mind. Some facts. There's a couple of very good references. Just Google it. One is Breitbart News, and they did a really great analysis of all Trump's accomplishments in terms of securing the border. So if you just Google Breitbart News and look for border news, right? The second one is the speech or the talk that Homeland Security Secretary Nielsen gave to a law enforcement officer conference. It's very good. It's full of facts, and that was just a couple of weeks ago. And I would highly encourage you, when you talk to your friends and neighbors and family members who are misguided, by the news that's out there, right, from CNN and MSNBC, have the facts ready for you. But here are some quick facts. Okay. This is from Secretary Nielsen. Her remarks on the illegal immigration crisis. This entire crisis is not new. I'm just going to quote from her. It has been occurring and expanding over many decades. Currently, it is the exclusive product of loopholes in our federal immigration laws. It started with Clinton in 1998 that prevent illegal immigrant minors and family members from being detained and removed to their home countries. Let's be clear, she said, illegal entry is a crime as determined by Congress, not by Donald Trump. By entering our country illegally, often in dangerous circumstances, illegal immigrants have put their children at risk. Our government hasn't put them at risk. Their own families have put them at risk. In the last 3 months, she says, we have seen illegal immigration on our southern border exceed 50,000 people per month. 50,000. Since this time last year, there has been a 325% increase in unaccompanied alien children and a 435% increase in family units entering the country illegally. Over the last 10 years, there has been a 1,700% increase in asylum claims, resulting in an asylum backlog today in our country of 600,000 cases. Since 2013, the United States has admitted more than 500,000 illegal immigrant minors and family units from Central America. She says, we need to amend the 2008 Trafficking Victims Protection Authorization Act that has these loopholes that encourages this illegal migration. I encourage you to read her whole article. It's really very good. Now, there's also a good posting on the White House, on the White House's website. Okay, it's about what Trump is doing on the border and why he's doing it, and some of his accomplishments regarding this. The Trump administration created the Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement Office, that's VOICE, the acronym. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement launched the VOICE office in April 2017, following an executive order by the president calling for its creation. The VOICE office operates a hotline to connect victims with social services and, when possible, assist them in obtaining immigration information regarding the offender. A 2011 Government Accountability Office report found nearly 3 million offenses tied to criminal aliens, including more than 25,000 homicide offenses, more than 42,000 robbery offenses, nearly 70,000 sex crime offenses, nearly 15,000 kidnapping offenses. In Texas alone, more than 250,000 criminal aliens have been arrested and charged with over 600,000 criminal offenses within the last 7 years. In fiscal year 2017, more than 8,000 criminal illegal aliens in police custody were released back into our communities as a result of sanctuary policies, including this man who murdered Jared Nathaniel Vargas, took his life 20 years old 2 weeks ago, burned his body. The only reason he was discovered was because, well, it set off a fire alarm. Fire, police came and discovered the body. Terrible crime. Well, anyway, sounds like a heavy way to start this subject, but that's why we're here, to learn and to be able to evangelize our brothers and sisters, our friends and neighbors about the truth about what's happening. We have to protect our liberties and our freedoms here in Texas. Amen? Okay, George. I'd like to introduce George Rodriguez. George is the former head of the San Antonio Tea Party. He's the editor for the El Conservador blog, right? He is a syndicated columnist, and he's very well known around town. George?
For good or bad, I'm very well known. Thank you very much for showing up, folks. We felt that this was a very, very important organizing tool that we had to take part in today, because there are so many events going on around the nation countering this. Right down the road here, we've got over at Milan Park, there is a rally going on, as most of you know, a rally going on to do away with ICE. And, folks, I'm not sure what kind of thinking that is, but that's like saying, let's get rid of the police department. I mean, really, let's get rid of the military as well while we're at it. This kind of thinking that we've got right now has got to be utilized to win in November. We have got to use their words against them. We have right now, as we speak, as well as we have several city council members, as well as mayors of the mayor of San Antonio and members of the county commission that are going to be at the other rally. What does that tell you about their politics? I mean, what does that tell you about their politics? I don't understand. Please explain to me, and I have asked the media, I've asked Democrats about this. Please explain to me, what's the point of being a lawful legal citizen if illegal aliens, and I'm going to use that word, that phrase, if that's okay, what is the point if illegal aliens have the same rights, privileges, and benefits? What's the point? What is the point of having a nation if you don't have a border? I grew up in South Texas. I was born in Laredo, but grew up in San Antonio. And let me tell you, my friends, for generations, my family has fought against illegal immigration because not only do they commit crime, but they also compete with us for jobs. For us being Americans, not just Mexican Americans, but everybody. I had somebody the other day tell me, well, George, don't you support a guest worker program? No, I don't. And let me tell you why. Because in 1986, I personally, working in the Reagan administration, I personally worked on the 1986 law that has been destroyed. Okay? The immigration law that has been destroyed. The law that said you can't hire illegal aliens, that went by the wayside. The law that said that you cannot give welfare benefits to illegal aliens, that went by the wayside. And unfortunately, let me tell you, I hate to hurt some feelings, but all of those underminings of the law, that happened under the Bush administration. Can you imagine? And you know why it happened under the Bush administration? Because they wanted to win, supposedly, Senator Pete Wilson in California. He said that if we did that, that Hispanics would come into the Republican Party in California. How did that work out? How did that work out? You know? This situation that we've got, my friends, right now, is one where it is strictly the Saul Alinsky fight, the game plan. Over there, we've got several ministers and priests that are involved in that other rally. And these folks are big on the idea of liberation theology. And that liberation theology is about as anti-American as you can get. And unfortunately, it has taken root. It has taken root deeply on the south and west side of San Antonio, and in some north side parishes as well. And what they do, my friends, is do nothing but undermine the values and the laws of our country. I mean, I am fascinated that we've got some nuns and ministers, Protestant ministers, that support abortion. You know, I don't understand, what is that all about? But they justify it. And they justify it because, I guess they also figure out which commandments you can violate and which ones you don't have to, you don't have to keep. We need, my friends, what we need is for the revolution, the defense of freedom and liberty to start right here. There's just a few of us here. Just a few of us here. But we need to be like missionaries, my friends. I spoke up in Comal County a couple of months ago, and they said, well, George, we know the problem. What do we do? Well, here's what we need to do. Here's what we need to do. We need to be like missionaries and get people to the polls. At the last election, last year, we had less total vote for the whole city. Less than 14% of total registered voters. That's liberals, conservatives, Democrats, Republicans. And we lost. We conservatives lost. So you can imagine how many actually voted. How many actually voted? In my precinct, which doesn't have a precinct chair, in my precinct, right in the middle of the north side, of the Republican north side, we had 12 people vote in the primary. In the runoff. 12! We have got to do a better job of getting our people to the polls. Otherwise, we lose our freedom. And we lose it very quietly. Here in San Antonio, those Democrat leader, liberal politicians that are over there at the other event. They're going to do it very, very quietly. They take our freedoms and liberties away quietly. But they do it. They do it very, very quietly. They don't do it, with a sledgehammer like they do in Washington. They do it quietly, and we go along. We surrender. You know why? Because it's for the good of the community. It's for the benefit of the community. We go along with it. We need, my friends, to make sure that America and Texas flourish. And the way that we do it, my friends, is to obey the laws, to protect our borders, and to be moral people. You cannot have a civil society if you don't have moral people. And unfortunately, morality, I think, has gone out the window. I'm not sure, but it seems like it, at least this past month, from what I've seen. Let me just conclude by saying this, my friends, that America is a God-given, blessed land, or was. However, we are in danger of losing it. We are in danger of losing it internally and externally. We are in danger of giving up our freedoms and our rights. I don't really care about the greater good of the community, because unless the individual, unless I am free and have my freedoms and my liberties, my personal economic freedoms and liberties, the rest doesn't matter. The rest doesn't matter. We are here, my friends, to celebrate a man, to thank a man, in my opinion, Mr. Trump, for having the guts, to stand up. We are here to celebrate, as we get closer to the 4th of July, to celebrate the birthday of the greatest nation in the history of the earth. And we must protect her, just like the song says. May God guide us, my friends. May God bless America. And thank you for coming once again.
Before I call Colonel Casillas up, I want to mention to all of you, how many are involved with the Republican Party of Bexar County here as precinct chairs? Holy moly, very good. Okay, we have about 400 vacancies. Okay, if we're going to change Bexar County and turn it more conservative, we need more folks stepping up. Okay, there are sign-up sheets there. Now, you might want to know, well, it sounds hard, like a lot of work, precinct chair. Not necessarily. First of all, we need folks to vote with us when we're in executive committees. Okay, because the other side is trying to move us to the center or even farther left. If you're interested and you want to talk to one of us, if you sign your name and phone number, email, you don't have to make a commitment, but just we can talk to you about it. Okay? So please consider that. That's very important, and pray about it. It's very important. Before I call up the Colonel, you know how CNN, NBC, you know, Trump can't do anything right? Let's just remember what he's done in the short year that he's been in office. Just a few checkpoints. He signed the tax reform bill late last year. That's basically causing this boom in our economy, correct? Okay. How about the diplomatic efforts to neutralize the international security threat of North Korea's nuclear arms buildup in Singapore, right? And we've got to keep on top of that guy, right? Kim Jong-il, whatever his name is. So yes, he's presiding over a booming economy, the lowest U.S. unemployment rate in decades, almost 50 years. And that's the lowest for African Americans, for Hispanics, and whites. Why are they Republicans? Hiring freeze of federal employees. That's something enacted last year. Defunding sanctuary cities. Reinstating Reagan's Mexico policy, restricting funding for international organizations that provide abortion services. Restarting 2 major pipeline projects. Remember how Obama killed that? That's jobs, right? What does he care? Streamlining regulations on manufacturing to bring overseas factories back home. Issuing executive memoranda requiring all new construction and repair of pipelines to use American materials and equipment. Buy American first, huh? Rolling back regulations targeting the coal industry. Proposing massive cuts to federal agencies' budgets to streamline government. I'm sure you can think of others. Colonel Robert Casillas. Colonel Casillas is a rancher, former candidate for State Representative District 118, and he'll tell you more about himself. Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, Phil. I want to take this opportunity to recognize my daughter, Allison. We had good news at the end of May. Her dissertation was approved, and she has one research project, and hopefully will have a PhD in educational leadership by December. So, Allison and Eric. Thank you all for coming. My name is Robert Casillas. I want to thank George and Phil and all who had part in this rally today. The organization of it, I know is short notice, but it's very important. I made a few notes, so let me get to it. One, thank God for a beautiful day. As I mentioned, I want to thank Phil and George, and thank you for attending. It's just so important. And as a rancher and a farmer, please, Sunday or whenever you pray for rain. We really need rain. Our region is parched. They've had a lot of rain in the valley recently, 8 to 10 inches, but we need it here in our area, so please pray for rain. I'd like to recognize, I'm a retired military officer. I served in Vietnam as a Marine in 1969, and then I transferred to the Army, so I retired out of the Army. But all you veterans, please raise your hand. I'd like to recognize all the veterans. Thank you for serving. I always try to say that because it's so important. It's time, again, I'm going to beat the drum here. It's time for patriotic Americans to rise up, to stand up. We in Texas have a border that's 1,254 miles long. The whole country, the U.S. has a border of 1,954 miles. So I don't care what the left coast says. I don't care what those people in New York City say. We here in Texas understand we have to defend 1,254 miles of border with Mexico. It is vital. And that's just right down the road, 150 miles away, and I'm going to share some information about what's going on in Mexico in a second. I recognize it's a federal responsibility, but it's important that Governor Abbott, just like Governor Perry did, support the border, support our law enforcement agencies, the county sheriffs. We have all these counties along the border, and they need state support. Again, it's a federal responsibility to seal that border, but Texas has to do its part. And I also understand why the folks in Gonzales on October the 2nd, 1835 said, come and take it. This is our land, so we have to defend it. Security is vital and essential to every country or state. It's all over the world. People have borders. I'm a proud supporter of the state of Israel, a tiny little democracy in the Middle East, that we have to defend her. And if you pay attention to the international media, the Iranians and others are attacking her daily. And when they say death to Israel, the next phrase is death to America. So we're on their mind. And again, security is essential, it's vital. And it's the reason you lock your front door. It's the reason I lock my truck. I park right there at the corner. I lock my truck. It's natural for us to do that, to protect our families, protect our property, and in the larger sense, we have to protect our state and our country. So we're blessed to have a president that believes what we believe in this border security, President Donald J. Trump. I mean, that is just so bold of him. And you look back 3 or 4 presidents, Republican and Democrat, he's done more in 18 months than Barack Hussein Obama did in 8 years. In 18 months, he's exceeded all those accomplishments, and it's just getting better. Let me share some, again, I'm a retired military guy, and I used to look a lot at, I work in the classified world, and we look at secret stuff, but if you look at the open media, the drug cartels are running Mexico. Back a few years ago, there was 8 major cartels. Now, since they got Chapo and they've got them in federal prison, they've kind of fallen apart, and there's like 300 mini cartels. So it's just gotten worse, and it's not going to get any better. In Juarez, El Paso, across the river Juarez, the Juarez cartel runs that portion of the border. As you come farther south to Big Bend, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Laredo, Los Zetas control that. And then if you go down to the Rio Grande Valley, it's the Gulf cartel. So 3 major cartels control 1,254 miles. And those, how many went to the state convention here a couple of weeks ago? I was speaking with a gentleman, he's the county chair in Del Rio, and he was telling me a story. This happened just recently. A government official in Mexico, I think it's Villacuña, was talking against the cartels. And you know, he was for law enforcement, law and order, and they warned him. Well, he figured he was safe because he lived on our side. Well, he kept at it, didn't pay attention, so one afternoon he got home about 5 o'clock, got out of his car, and two, probably Zetas, came up to him and blew his head off. Now, the similar thing happened in Eagle Pass around the same time frame. So this is serious. And if you look at crime here in Texas or here in San Antonio, Mexican mafia, but these cartels are powerful. They have billions of dollars. It's estimated in the last few years they earn between 19 and 24 billion dollars a year. 19 and 24 billion dollars a year. So it's nothing for them to buy a high-powered rifle, the latest body armor, and they're ruthless. They're ruthless. Now, you know, I hate to be pessimistic, but there's a guy, he's a radical socialist. His name is Andrés Manuel López Obrador. He's a leading candidate in Mexico, and tomorrow he's going to be elected president of Mexico. He vows to discontinue military pressure on the cartels in Mexico. See, in 2006, through the aid of America, United States, they started using the military, Ejército Mexicano, the Mexican Army, the Mexican Navy, Mexican Marines, Special Forces, and they have been making big inroads since 2006. Well, this socialist says that's going to end. They're not going to prosecute, they're not going to go after the cartels. He also intends to decrease security cooperation with the United States. I'm telling you, it's going to get bad very soon. And he has also said he's going to increase engagement with Russia and China. So he's pushing the U.S. back, and he's stated he's going to increase cooperation with Russia and China. So I'm telling you, that is dangerous. The last few years of my military career, I worked in Central America and South America. Right now, the Chinese, after President Carter gave the Panama Canal back, they immediately bought the West End and the East End, the Atlantic side and the Pacific side. So I'm telling you, Chinese are all over Central and South America. The Muslims are all over Central and South America, especially farther south in the tri-border area of Uruguay, Paraguay, Argentina. There's massive numbers of Muslims and Chinese all over. And to the extent that Chinese dollars, example, are building railroads in Chile so they can pull out copper to the Pacific coast. And they have a major role actually all over the world. So I believe things are going to get worse before they get better. Let me briefly, and I've already touched on it, talk about the strategic level. The greatest existential threat to the United States of America is not Russia, it's Communist China. And they have had a plan since 1949 when they kicked Chiang Kai-shek out of the mainland onto Taiwan. They've had a plan since then that they call it the 100-year plan, and they're coming to it 2049, makes 100 years, and they are rivaling the American military dominance in the world. You've heard about that big island they built in the South China Sea. They have built a pipeline between China and Russia to move oil, gas and oil. Why? Because the United States controls the 7 seas. Just like we choked off oil to Japan in World War II, they recognize that threat, so they've got a pipeline between China and Russia. That's how, at the strategic level, things have gotten worse. So I encourage you to, I know we have a lot of problems, but it's important to keep abreast of that, to understand that threat. And we have a lot of speakers, so I want to close. And I want to close with a piece that was written over 100 years ago. It was written in 1917 by a man named William Tyler Page, and he wrote the American Creed shortly after America entered World War I. And I want to share that with you. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy and a republic inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, justice, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I, therefore, believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. So I want to thank you. Be safe going home. May God bless Texas, and may God bless the United States of America. Build the wall.
Thank you, Colonel. One other point, he was talking about the convention. How many were delegates in the convention? Wow, fabulous. Well, as you know, there were 8,700 of us, right? And was our platform and our planks, were they good? Took a lot of work, didn't it? You know, listen to everybody, had to get it all out on the floor, right? But Texas is conservative. Texas is the bastion for freedom, the engine, okay, because of these dedicated conservative Texans who take the time to knock out our platform so our Republican leaders know what our will is, correct? We have to hold them responsible for following the platform which comes from us, correct? Let's remember that in November for elections, okay? All right, I'd like to call up Marion Knowlton next. Marion, I've gotten to know her quite well. She's a delightful Republican leader. She's a Texan, a rancher. And she is the new executive committee member for SD19 for the Republican Party of Texas. Yes. And by the way, Colonel Casillas also won an election as, you are partners in SD19, right?
We are.
Congratulations. Okay.
Well, I was a little nervous coming here, but I see I'm among friends and so many like-minded people, and that is so great. And speaking of the economy, I think I heard Governor Abbott say that the Texas economy was larger than Russia's. So, you know, if we ever did become a country, we know where we'd stand. I want to put this down just a little bit if I can. How do you do that? Huh? I'm not as tall as everybody else. Okay. Oh, that's right there. Good. Thank you. Hey, I am from Atascosa County, and I hear a lot of people in our area. I'm really not a rancher. I'm a farmer. I've got 2 baby goats and a donkey and a horse and a vegetable garden. But I know a lot of ranchers down there, and things have changed since the days of people coming by for a sandwich and a glass of water to make a living in Texas and points north. So I hear it all the time. Things are changing. But what I wanted to say first is just start about fake news. Someone mentioned MSNBC and CNN. We all see and hear the fake news about what's happening on the border, about how children are being separated from their families, about how they're incarcerating people unwillfully. But think about this. When someone crosses the border illegally, they commit a crime. Would you all agree with that? And when they commit a crime, they become a criminal. Now, every day in our country, in our state, in our counties, people commit crimes, and they're separated from their children. They don't take their children with them to prison. So there's nothing unusual about criminals being separated from their families. We are a nation of laws. We are a nation of laws. And a nation has borders. Without borders, we have no country. And it's as if the opposition, those who oppose our president, who has tried to secure our borders, want our nation to dissolve. They want it to disappear. To me, I'm not on that team, folks, and I'll bet most of you are not either. In fact, I would say that those that want to dissolve our country and want to dissolve ICE are traitors and should be treated as such. Those are traitors trying to take away our country. This issue has nothing to do with children, in my opinion. Because actually, from what I've seen on this fake news, which may be Fox, I don't know, but they're being treated quite well. They've got a lot more than a lot of our American children have. They're being fed well, they've got recreational facilities, they've got a place to stay, they've got showers. Many of our American children don't have that. So what is the truth? The truth is that people are crossing the border illegally, and they're coming from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, China, and India. In fact, I've been told that the Asian population is the fastest growing minority in the state of Texas. Think that one through. Now, while there are some bad people coming in here, gangsters and killers and stuff, most of these people are not bad. They're coming from countries where they're making the equivalent of $2 US a day, coming across the border where they can make $10 an hour. That's quite an incentive to risk for them to come across here. And so what's the problem with that? The problem is they're taking jobs from American citizens and legal aliens. We need to protect our own people. It hurts our economy because taxes are not being paid on these illegal paid wages, and the taxpayers, us, are shouldering the burdens because these illegal aliens are receiving government services. I had one fellow that was close to the ICE organization tell me that people said, well, you don't know where these people disappear to? Yeah, they do. Just follow the earned income credit check because they're all getting money. So what is the solution? The solution is we need to enforce our borders and our immigration laws. Those that want to get rid of ICE, like this Kirsten Gillibrand, who's very dangerous from New York State, who's I hear is wanting to run for president in 2020, we need to minimize the people like that. We need to support our president. We need to vote for conservatives. We have a special election taking place in July for Senate District 19. How many of you are from Senate District 19 here? A few of us. We have, for those of you who are not from Senate District 19, you probably know some people who are in Senate District 19, which runs Helotes area, West, Alamo Ranch, that area, Northeast, Converse, Cibolo, that area, and then South Bexar County. Peter Flores is running for state senator. There are 8 people on the ballot. We need to get Peter Flores elected. He's a constitutional conservative, he's a man of God, and he is equipped and capable. So we need to get that word out. Then we have the midterms in November. That is probably the most important election of our lifetime. Now, I know somebody said that 2 years ago, the presidential election was the most important election of our lifetime, but it was. It was. And imagine if the other person were president now.
Hillary.
Yeah, where would we be? Pretty scary. So, this midterms is now the most important election of our lifetime. We are closer than ever to solving our immigration problem. We really are. But we must get out the vote in November. And we must keep the House and we must keep the Senate. Ted Cruz said, I heard him say at the convention, if we lose the House and Nancy Pelosi becomes a Speaker, impeachment proceedings will begin immediately. And then at that point, investigations will be filed into every branch of the federal government to cripple the federal government. They'll be having to fight arrows and not being able to do their jobs. And Donald Trump will become a lame duck president for the next 2 years. We have our charge before us. We must get out the vote. Do not let the liberal, radical opposition destroy our country. Vote, vote, vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, I'd like to call Mr. Chris Fales up. Chris is the former mayor of Hollywood Park and candidate for State Representative District 122.
I want to start off with one thing, because we've got some law enforcement officers over here, and we've got some law enforcement officers over here. Down the road at Main Plaza, MoveOn.org is having a rally, and it is an anti-law enforcement rally. So I want everybody just to applaud these people for doing their job and being out here. Thank you. Thank you. We need to remember that elections matter. They do. Borders matter. Acts 17:26, God set up nations and their borders. So whenever the Pope comes out and says God didn't create borders, he needs to read the Bible. I think we have a Pope that doesn't know how to read. We also need to understand that it's important that we secure that. Right now we have a lot of people who are trying to say that conservatives are anti-Hispanic. Well, you've seen a lot of the speakers, and I know we've got another Hispanic speaker. We're not anti-Hispanic. We're not anti-people coming into this country. We're not anti-immigration. What we are for is the same thing that happens whenever you get pulled over on a traffic stop. If someone wants to come in this country, who are you? Okay? Let me see your background. Just like if you get pulled over and there's a warrant, they're not going to let you go free. You're going to take a ride in the back of the police car and you're going to go to jail. That's exactly what we want in this country. Who was it? What party was it that got the 14th Amendment that allowed equal protection under the law? What party was that? What party was it that passed the Civil Rights Acts? And then this week, whenever Ted Cruz put up a bill to end the separation of children from their families whenever they came across the border while they were waiting for proceedings, what was the only party that anybody was from that voted for that? The Democrats are saying that we are separating children from their families. Then we have Ted Cruz come up, put up a bill to end the separation, and every Democrat voted against the bill. Who is the party of equal rights? Who is the party that's fighting for the minorities? Because, I'm sorry, did anybody see a carve out in the tax cut bill that said it only applied to white males? We don't have that. That's not what we're doing. We're trying to put money back in everybody's pocket. We're trying to give everybody, regardless of race, creed, ethnicity. It doesn't matter. We're fighting for the rights of everybody. And that's why it's important that we maintain a Republican majority in the state of Texas. It's why it's important that we maintain a Republican majority in the Senate and the House in D.C. I'm going to tell you right now, it hurts my soul because we're past the primaries. It's time for us to come together. And I will agree that there are some people within our party that got the Republican nomination that I don't agree with. But it is time for us to put the sword aside for those people within our own party. It is time that we need to rally around every Republican, regardless of whether we think they're a good or a bad one, because we've got to protect the majority.
Amen.
And here's the thing. Will Hurd is a perfect example. If Will Hurd does not get reelected, that's one less representative that we have, counting as a Republican majority, to keep Pelosi from being the next Speaker of the House. What's more important is that we have a bad representative or that we have a good Speaker.
Bad representative.
We need to be sure that we maintain our majorities. Just like after I lost my bid for the State House, in my concession call, I told my opponent that I would be willing to volunteer for his campaign, because we need to be sure that we maintain Republican majorities so that we can get these bills passed so that we can protect people of all races and all creeds in this country. That's why it's important that we get out there. And regardless of your physical health, you can do phone banking. You can get out there and you can work for these people. It's going to take us, not sitting at home, not on social media. It's going to take shoe leather, time sitting on your tail making phone calls to be sure that we have Republicans in there, to be sure that we maintain a majority so that we can avoid Trump becoming a lame duck president because of all the crazy indictments that she was talking about, so that we can be sure that the country continues to move forward in an equitable manner for everyone. We need to get out there. We need to work to be sure that we protect that. So I implore every one of you right now, whatever it is, I don't care if it's just picking up a phone call and going down a call list to work for somebody. Help another person. Be sure that we prevent this anti-law enforcement, anti-law group from taking over in this country. Thank you very much.
Okay, second appeal, if you're not involved with the coming elections and you want to get involved, just want to talk, write your name down and phone number, email, we'll contact you. Okay, Cynthia Brem and myself and other folks at the Republican Party in Bexar County. We need everybody to help. Right, Michael? Okay, next one up, we'd like to invite Dr. Alma Arredondo up. Dr. Alma's a rancher, former candidate. I'm sorry, Dr. Alma Arredondo Lynch. She's a rancher, former candidate for U.S. Representative District 23.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, fellow patriots, Texans and Tejanos. I agree with you, Chris, to a certain extent, and I'm not a bitter loser or whatever you want to call it, but let me tell you something. When Phil called me, let me see, it was Tuesday night, and asked me if I would speak here today. Fellow patriots, I was leaving the next day to go to Pecos, Fort Stockton, Alpine to do my patriotic duty to get Peter Flores elected. Not only that, but go and leave Ted Cruz's stickers and everything. So I've been doing my share. So I had to curtail my plans because I wanted to go to the Pecos Rodeo also. And so I said, yes, I'll be there. I'll be more than happy to speak there. And I was beginning to think that he was going to leave me to the very end because I'm very fiery and I really speak my mind. And I'm just wondering, where did KSAT go? They were here. And as soon as Phil started speaking, they left. So, and I kind of hesitate to speak to these media because they always misquote you or they always get the ugliest picture and put it up on the wall. And of course, I'm the exception, but anyway. Fellow American, Tejano, Texan patriots, thank you for coming here, for being here today, especially in such a hostile environment, political environment. If you go out and you say you're a Trump supporter or you're a conservative, they lash out at you. And I'm sorry, Phil, when those individuals asked me what we were here for, when I saw them, I'm not a racist, but all I was thinking was Maxine Waters and pro-open borders. And I said that when they asked me, well, why are you here? And he says, no, you're not here for that. And I'll go, no, we're for closed borders. We want to build a wall. And in my candidacy, I advocated that we needed to build that wall. Everywhere we go, even heaven has guidelines that we need to go by. You cannot enter heaven if you don't follow, like, repent and be baptized and enter the kingdom of heaven. So why would we be any different? Anyway, it's gotten to the point where we have politicians advocating in-your-face politics to people who have the freedom of speech, and they want to take that away also. And the president keeps going back to Congress and asking for his wall. Well, let me tell you something. We spend $135.5 billion, tax-paying dollars, your hard-earned dollars, on 12.5 million illegal aliens. Well, Tejanos, Texans, we only need 20 billion. If he cuts aid to all of these illegal aliens, guess what? We can build 5.5 walls. We don't need 5.5 walls. We only need one. And if we can't get that built, I'm going to ask you to all go to Walmart or CVS and go buy a whole bunch of jars of Vaseline and send them to the border and let them Vaseline those walls so they won't be able to crawl up those walls or climb the wall. You know, it's not only Americans that we are being attacked, but our men and women in uniform, our Border Patrol and ICE. If we don't have order in this country, if these people that cross our borders, they break one law, they break all laws. And we are a nation of the rule of law. And we have existed because we follow the law. And whether we like it or not, you know, I was speeding the other day and they stopped me and they gave me a ticket, not because I didn't have a tail light or anything like that, it's because I didn't have the insurance card. So I went back and I took it to the justice of the peace and they dismissed that. But you know what? I had to follow the law. I had to follow the rule of law. And we're not saying that we don't want people to come to the United States. We want them to do it legally. We don't want illegal immigration. It really saddens me because in traveling the 58,000 square miles, I found that a lot of or some of our counties are sanctuary counties also, like San Antonio is a sanctuary city. Well, our counties are sanctuary counties, and they get monies from the federal government. I would love to see our president do away with that funding. Okay, it's not only Mexicans that are coming across, it's also the Muslims that are coming from Syria and the Iranians and Pakistan and you name it. My sister went down on the border. They went and she was sitting there getting her nails done, and when they opened the door, the back room was just filled up with a whole bunch of Chinese, or I should say, or Asians. I don't know if Oriental is proper to say, but the Asians. And she says they were just stuffed in there like sardines. And I said, I bet you anything those are illegal. And I bet you they are. And somebody just reaffirmed that. Anyway, I stand so firmly with President Trump. And you know what? I have a big President Trump sticker on the back of my truck, and I have one of those, what is it, 18 by 24 signs inside my truck, and they tell me you need to take that down when you go down to the valley because they can attack you. You know what? To this day, I haven't been attacked. And there's people, my people, Tejanos, that have been here for generations. I'm 5th generation Tejana, that are for the wall. And they Facebook me, they private message me, and they want the wall built as soon as possible. We have been demonized and we have been vilified for being true patriots because we want what's right for America. And when President Trump was elected, or before he was elected, my son called me and he says, Mother, it doesn't look good for President Trump. And I said, son, God is in control. And tomorrow the sun will rise like it has for millions of years. And guess what? Hasn't it been rising every day? And we have President Trump as our president. He is so awesome. Okay, we have reached a point in time where American patriots have drawn the line, a line across America's heart. And we all need to stand up. And it really saddens me that there's only a few here present today. And I hear people complaining, and someone said, well, what's the solution? On my way back from Alpine, I met a lot of people that supported me along Highway 90 that asked me to stop by their ranches. And so that was one of the questions that I asked one of these ranchers. And he said, why don't we impose a fine on those that don't come out to vote? If they don't want to come out and vote, we'll fine them, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. And I said, you know what? Do you remember when we had the poll tax? I mean, I'm very young, but I found those pieces of paper where my grandfather would pay the poll tax. And I asked him one day as a child, I said, and I was very smart, and I said, Guello, what is a poll tax? And he says, I pay so I can vote. And that kind of puzzled me. And so when he said, well, we need to find everybody, you know what we need to do? We need to find them. And the only way they can get their money back is if they show that they showed up to vote the following election. Not once, twice, maybe 3 times. Then we can reimburse their money. But then if you have crooked politicians, they'll never see that money. Just like we don't see our taxes. I live in Uvalde County, and we have problems over there. I think everybody's got problems. But they're talking about not having open borders. How would you all like if President Trump would extend the border all the way down to Honduras or Guatemala? And then we have all the oil, we have all the vacation spots, and then we have all the people that want to work. They'll be here legally. Don't you think that? I think we should. I think we should extend our borders all the way down there. And then we don't have to argue with the other president. We'll let him run around and pretend that he's a Mexican leader over there. Along those lines, I don't know where my teleprompter is, but oh, low budget. Anyway, but we need to get out there, and we need to get out there and vote and support President Trump this October. Because if we don't, you've heard Colonel Casillas and Marion and I'm sorry, Chris Fales, what's going to happen? And we need to go out there and make these people go out and vote. If not, I don't know what we're going to be able to do if the president doesn't get the Congress. And as far as supporting other candidates, like I said, I've been out there, I've been browbeating the bushes for other Republicans to get elected. And if nothing else, people, get out there and donate. Donate to these candidates because it's expensive. Freedom is not free. It's not free, because we see a lot of veterans too that gave up their lives. And we have veterans that have given up limbs for that right. And I am not for DACA. And I am very, very ultra-conservative. I want DACAs and Dreamers to go back where they came from. I want them to get in line and apply for citizenship like everybody else. These people are not children. Don't let the media mislead you and tell you that they're children. They've been here and they're in their late 20s, early 30s, and not all of them are educated either. And they've had plenty of time to acquire their citizenship. And so we are not anti-immigration. We are for legal immigration. And there's a big difference. And we need to expose that. The health of our republic is on the balance, fellow patriots, and we need to get out there and try to cure it. And before I leave, how many of you, I'm sure many of you remember Paul Harvey? Yeah. They're spying on us. They want to see how many people are at our rally. Do you remember, he wrote, if I were a farmer, or I am a farmer. In one of the Super Bowls, he had the most beautiful explanations of a farmer. Well, have you all heard If I Were the Devil? May I play it for you all? The audio is a little bit off. I could read it, but I think that I would do an injustice to his...
If I were the devil, if I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I'd want to engulf the whole world in darkness, and I'd have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree, thee. So I'd set about, however necessary, to take over the United States. I'd subvert the churches first. I'd begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve, do as you please. To the young, I would whisper that the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what's bad is good and what's good is square. And the old I would teach to pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction. I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and nations at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with promises of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions, just let those run wild. Until before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress. And in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make the symbol of Easter an egg and the symbol of Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I'd take from those who have and give to those who wanted until I had killed the incentive of the ambitious. And what'll you bet? I couldn't get whole states to promote gambling as the way to get rich. I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, in moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases for which there is no cure. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep right on doing what he's doing. Paul Harvey. Good day.
This was recorded back in 1965. How much of that has come to fruition? The majority of that. Well, I don't want to take any more time. My meter is running, and I'm supposed to be out of there by 10:45, so I don't know what to Anyway, thank you for coming. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, George. Thank everybody who invited me to be here. God bless you, and let's stand firm in God's Word. Remember, Proverbs 16:3, if you put your plans in His hands, they will succeed. And I believe in that. I'm a firm believer. So don't be afraid. Get out there and take a hold of our country. Let's take our country back. It needs us. President needs us. President Trump needs us. And we need you. We need each other. Thank you.
I don't know, we want you to run again in 2 years in the same office. And you too, Mr. Fales, where are you? Are you gonna run again? Where's Chris? Did he leave? Look at this guy. Oh, okay. He's patrolling the neighborhood, make sure we're safe. I'd like to call up Weston Martinez, local Republican activist and leader. I think he ran for railroad commissioner. So he's got a lot to say. Thank you for coming, Weston.
Well, howdy. This is Texas, right? Howdy. Let me tell you what. Thank you all for being here today. This is an opportunity that we've been waiting for. You know what? It's a shame that we have a city in San Antonio that will take down monuments right here in this very park in the middle of the night. But they'll put up rainbow crosswalks in broad daylight. And before I get started, let me tell you what, the gentleman that's here in the back, Pastor, when y'all get done, go by and see this nice gentleman over here. Apparently, he has a church in the park on a monthly basis. Go by and say hi and thank him for being out here. I don't know how long he will have the freedom to celebrate church in the park in this city. So be sure you go by and thank him, okay? But we're joined by great leaders and great patriots today as we look at what's going on. We're celebrating the 300th anniversary of San Antonio. You know, George, I'm surprised that Mayor Dernberg didn't give the city of San Antonio back to the King of Spain when he was here the other day. I mean, after all, what's a border anyway? Why do we do that? And when we allow sanctuary cities to be the magnet for human trafficking, ladies and gentlemen, it murders innocent people. We don't want to talk about where they're from, fine. You have children whose ears are getting cut off because they are risking coming to San Antonio so that they can have all of the programs the Democrats and liberals want for them. Why? Because they know that to enslave the next generation, you don't need a boat. You don't need chains. All you need is to enslave their mind. And that is what liberals are trying to do. You know, the flag of liberty has always flown in San Antonio. The Battle of the Alamo is a very significant battle. It is the birthplace, the cradle of liberty, not only for Texas, but for our nation. It is a very key component. There's a line that I'll share with you a couple of times. Without Texas, we wouldn't be an American. Think about that. Without Texas, we would not be an American. So when we look forward at some of the details that are also taking place, you know, I'm reminded of the fact that we do have the sanctuary city policies that are going on here. You did and continue to have a police chief that took a bunch of people out of an 18-wheeler where many died, and 3 days before Christmas, was it before Christmas, let them out and then didn't know where they went. Our Attorney General Ken Paxton was in town about 3 months ago, and I did not know this, but I had filed a complaint along with some other people related to the breaking of Senate Bill 4 and the promotion of sanctuary cities. And Ken Paxton, our Attorney General, mentioned that my complaint was the first properly filed complaint against an elected official in the state of Texas for violating Senate Bill 4, which is the promotion of sanctuary cities. Ladies and gentlemen, we need everybody to file complaints like that to hold our law enforcement accountable and enforcing the law. If they don't want to enforce the law, they should simply resign. Get out of here. We do not need you. The other thing that's interesting as I look through what's happening here in the city of San Antonio is we have an opportunity to address these situations in these elections. You know, we talked about Senate Bill 4, we talked about, Pete Flores and being up for election for Carlos Uresti. Anybody know where Carlos Uresti is going to be going? I mean, he can be the president of whatever prison they send him to. I'm fine with that. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. But when you have people that are being corrupted like that, we have to know what is taking place. A couple of other things that are very, very interesting is that when you look at what's happening in Mexico right now, 132 people running for office in Mexico were murdered in this presidential cycle in the country of Mexico. When you have Obrador telling people, go to the United States and we will defend your right. I think George, or the Alamo Torch, I think y'all already wrote about this. He said, flee to the United States, and we as a country will protect your right to stay in America. Are you kidding me? So the elites in Mexico, guess what they're thinking? Hey, cost us less money to run our government, send the people that are the drag on our economy over to America. It's like a hostile takeover. We have to be vigilant about what is taking place. And that's just one other key fact that I wanted to bring with you today. You know, Del Rio, Texas, their mayor is going to be speaking at the LGBT gay parade that's happening today. Quite interesting that jail is 3 times the size of the required size for that city. So there's these formulas that say, based on your population, your jail must be X size. That jail is 3 times the size of the required standard. Almost 70% of the people that are in that jail are OTMs, other than Mexicans. Yeah. It's not just people from Guanajuato or Mexico City. It's people from Chechnya. It's people from Turkey. It's people from, I mean, go down the list. Colonel, if you had somebody from Turkey and a guy from Guanajuato next to each other in a Lone Star camouflage baseball cap, could you tell which one is which? You can't. ISIS, you can ask Dr. Alma, ISIS has, we all know there's camps that are on the other side of the border, not too far away from where we're at. There are holding houses where they have girls that are being held there until they can be properly sold to be trafficked. This is happening less than 150 miles from where we sit today. Yet, we need to spend money on putting rainbow crosswalks up. It is not the America that our fathers wanted us to have. Without Texas, we would not be an American. Somebody mentioned about the 14th Amendment a minute ago. Let me tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, we need to end birthright citizenship in the United States of America. We do not need to, and the reason why is because it's being used against us. The Republicans did it to stop the Democrats from making black Americans not count. That is exactly why it was done. Because when the slave trade was going on, and we all are against it, there were 300,000 people that were brought from Africa, sold by Africans, to people in the United States, to the United States of America. I think there was 2.5 million that went to Europe, ironically. Well, those 300,000 people turned into 3.3 million very quickly here in the United States of America. Guess who became very afraid of the people? The Democrats in the South. Guess who should be very afraid of the people once again in this country? The Democrats of the South. We need to make sure that birthright citizenship is ended. Now, let me be very specific. You do not remove the clause that says if you were born of a citizen that you still get to, you keep that clause, okay? So my wife and I have 5 kids. So if we had another kid, whether we were born, whether it was on a cruise ship in international waters, or whether we were in France, or whether we were in Uruguay, that child would still be an American citizen. But I'm saying the ability to come, like the Russians are doing right now. How many of y'all know that? The Russians are going to New York City, coming in, flying in, and having their child, getting their citizenship, and then flying back. Absolutely. That is a way to cripple a nation. As the military folks here will tell you, the number one rule in winning a war, the first thing you got to do is you got to secure the communication. Then you got to cut off their pipelines. Those are some of the things we've been talking about. But the 14th Amendment is a very important thing that we need to make sure that we are addressing, and we're going to have that opportunity to address that. Last thing I want to close with, I want to tell you, I was talking to a gentleman who immigrated legally, with an L, not an I, to the United States just a few years ago. He was working in South Mexico, in Central Mexico. He was approached by a cartel member saying, look, I know you're making X dollars a month and you need protection. You need to hire me for protection. This gentleman said, from who? The man responded, well, from me. Immediately that night, that man got his family to the United States. He could not leave for another couple of months, but instantly they sought the process of becoming legal citizens. That man, as a trying situation that he was in, I was having this conversation with him, and guess what he said? I understand the tragedy that some of these people are dealing with in Mexico, but the people that are getting rich are the people that have always been rich, and they allow this trade of trafficking to take place, because guess who gets paid? You think the coyote that's driving the truck is the CEO of the organization? No, there's some folks that are in Lear jets that are getting their cut as these things take place. And so this gentleman tells me, he says, people should not be able to cut in line. He told me of a man that was a business owner that was kidnapped by the cartel. After 3 months he escaped, and instead of going to the police, as Dr. Alma and some of the folks on the border can tell you, instead of going to the police, he went to the federales, the federal military police. They told him, oh man, we're so glad you're here, we'll get you to your family, we'll take care of you, we'll keep you safe. They put him in the van, drove him right back to the people that had kidnapped him. And when they got there, they said, Patron, we brought him back for you. If anybody needs a translation, you can pick one of us up with a Z at the end of our name, we'll be glad to tell you. Yes, I'm a Hispanic conservative Republican, but you know what? I'm an American. That is my designation. That is my classification. So this man that was kidnapped, escaped, they were holding him ransom for $300,000. Federales took him back. Guess what they did? Cut off 2 of his fingers to remind him, if you leave again, we'll cut off more than just your fingers. And then they had to pay $1 million, so the ante went up, because now they had to pay off the Federales, not just the people that were holding him. Ladies and gentlemen, there is only one way to save America, and that is to keep Texas, Texas. And we do not have another United States of America to move to, so I encourage you, we need to get up, we need to be the rally cry for how we move forward. We need to hold these people accountable. We need to make sure that we speak up. Do not be afraid to let your voice be heard. Do not be afraid to let your vote count. Do not be afraid to speak truth to power, and do not be afraid to shed light into darkness. Listen to the Alamo Torch. Tune in to George Rodriguez. Pay attention to what some of these other organizations that are doing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to row together in the same direction. We have new leadership in the Bexar County headquarters. The moderates are on the run. Folks like San Antonio Family Association have been working alongside many of you in order to promote those conservative values. Patrick Von Dole and Mike Knuffy are not here today, but they've worked alongside these different organizations. We are unified. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Army of God and this army to lock and load. God bless you. May God sincerely bless the great state of Texas. And again, thank you to Phil Sevilla and all the organizers for putting this thing on. Please give them another round of applause.
Well, considering we just organized this a few days ago, thank you for being here. You folks got to be special to come out here in the heat on Saturday morning, take away from your hustle bustle lives. Thank you very much. We should do this more often, right? Get together. We're family, right? Let's do it. We'll do it over at your ranch, or your farm. Oh, I like her ranch. I've heard her ranch is fabulous. What do you say, huh? Anyway, this was fun. So we'll do it again. Thank you for coming. George, do you have any parting words? Of course he does.
I just want to advertise.
He's never short of words. Go for it.
Let me make sure that you understand, folks, that there's the media, even public broadcasting, which we pay for. I'm not sure how often you hear conservative voices on public, that we pay taxes for. But there is the media, and then there's alternative media, like The Torch and like El Conservador. That's where you're going to hear our voices nowadays. Okay? You're not going to hear it from the other folks. We had one station here, we had two of them. One of them came, just observed, and took off. The other one did an interview, took off. And of course, we've got public radio here now today, Texas Public Radio right now. And hopefully, we will get a fair shake. But the situation, my friends, again, is that we need to get our message out. We need to get our message out, and the message goes out through social media. Okay, that's why a lot of folks want to control it through social media. What is that?
I'm live streaming on Facebook.
Oh, live streaming on Facebook. Tell folks, get on Facebook, get to know each other so you can friend each other, and then you can share information. I've got my website. Not only that, but I've got my Facebook page. And you can get on there and you can read, you can see what's going on, because you are not going to get this information from the 10 o'clock news, which gives you, news like that, and you're certainly not going to hear it in San Antonio Express. I'm sorry. So folks, please, please, please support alternative media, social media, us. Alrighty? Thank you very much.
So we'll do it again. Thanks for coming. Right on time. It's 10:30. God bless you all. God bless America, huh? Amen. Bye-bye.